Welcome to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. Today we are diving into a lesser known pizza topic, Detroit style pizza, with the president of Via 313, Kip Welsh. He and I have known each other for a while, but it was great to catch up with him and really understand the story of this brand, how they grew from being in a trailer to growing to over 25 units and continuing to grow every day. They have a really cool story of two brothers that started in a trailer in Austin and continue to deliver huge value and tons of really cool products. If you haven't checked them out, they're awesome. Love their food. Kipling and I really jive out on kind of what they continue to do. They also just released a food truck. He and I talk a lot about the Savory Restaurant Fund and how their partnership with them has helped the growth, as well as for them to not make mistakes that a lot of restaurant brands do. If you don't know me, my name is Jeremy Julian. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for CBS North Star. Please check us out at cbsnorthstar.com. And now on to the episode. Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. I thank everyone out there for joining us. As I like to say each and every time, we know you guys got lots of choices, so thanks for hanging. Today, I am joined by somebody that I respect highly on the operational side, and quite frankly, jealous because there's not a store close enough to me. So anytime I see one that when I'm traveling, I'm like, I got to go hit it up. But Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, kind of where you came from, and then let's talk about what your most current venture is, which I know you guys been taking the world by storm.
Hey, no, that sounds good, Jeremy. Thank you for having me. This is really nice to get a chance to catch up. My name is Kip Welsh. I go by Kip, but I am the president for Via 313 Detroit Pizzeria. And, kind of my whole career has been casual dining industry side, come out of college with Chili's, spent a lot of time with Chili's early 2000s, and then worked with some other big chains such as P.F. Chang's. And then as you met me and knew me from BJ's Restaurant Brew House for about 10 years. After leaving BJ's, I worked for a privately held group in Southern California in Lake Forest, and was there about 2 years, I guess, before coming on board with Via 313 when Savory Restaurant Fund brought me on. And so that's got me here to present day. I've been with Via now for just almost 2.5 years. It's played a big part as we've continued, obviously, some massive growth. We've opened, since I've been on board, 9 restaurants, and so we're now at 25 locations. But that is kind of a wide stroke of the career and what's got me here present day.
Yeah, no, it's great to reconnect. And again, cross paths when you were at BJ's, and it was fun to kind of watch your career trajectory, and it's cool to watch you leading this brand. For those that are not familiar, you guys are kind of, local-ish, to me and kind of where I'm at. But for those who are less familiar with both Detroit style pizza and really just the brand in general, why don't you walk us through it? Because it's a very cool concept, and quite frankly, like I said, probably helps with the waistline and helps with the the budget for clothing, having them not be too close to the house, because I think I'd be eating it more than I'd like, or than my wife would like. So why don't you talk us through what is the brand, and then we can talk a little bit about kind of where Savory even kind of fits in, because I think that's also kind of a cool story.
It is, very much so. And by the way, soon, well, hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll get up closer to you where you can have us a little more frequently. But the story of the brand I love to tell, actually, and I love because I've been around Brandon and Zane Hunt, the founders, for all of the times that we've announced and covered the story with our teams as we do new restaurant openings. But it was their vision. They're from Detroit, Michigan, 2011. Zane had made his way into Texas and settled in Austin, and he had actually been in radio and communications. And, as they got into Austin, Brandon wasn't down in Austin yet, but they're like, we were craving pizza like at home, and they just couldn't find anything in Austin. See, and Austin's got a vast, variety of restaurants and cuisines, but nothing quite like, the Detroit style pizza. And to go in and answer that piece of the question, the Detroit style pizza is different in how it's cooked, the dough texture. People do, term it as deep dish, which it is a thick crust pizza, but the Sicilian immigrants, as they came in and settled in Detroit and started working in the automobile manufacturing industry, what they learned is their dough cooked extremely well in the blue steel part pans that they used on the assembly lines. And so that's literally where it was derived from. And the Detroit style pizza is a little bit different. It's a focaccia kind of crust, I would call it, real light and airy. And the outside border of the pizza we build with a white cheddar to make the cheese wall, so it goes all the way to the edge. And then we use grande mozzarella, which I don't think probably there's a better domestic, produced manufacturer for mozzarella cheese than Grande. They do just a really, really good job. But that is the interior of the pizza. All of the ingredients go on, it gets baked, but then the sauce goes on after it comes out of the oven and at a room temperature. And it's a heavy black pepper sauce. So it's a little bit different and unique. So when you try it for the first time, I think people are really just sold by how it tastes. And it's just a different experience altogether. But as the brothers got in and we're trying to decide, hey, how could we get Detroit style pizza to Austin? They come up with a few different business plans, and everybody's like, hey, you've got a plan, but you don't have any capital. You got nothing to work with. And so that's where they turned to, hey, let's get a trailer open. And so they worked blood, sweat, and
That's
tears.
a very Austin thing to do, man. That's
right?
a very Austin
look
thing to
at
do.
all of the great concepts that have came out of trailers. So they were able to put together enough money. They had actually sad story, but they lost their mother to cancer, unfortunately. And part of what she had, they had a small life insurance policy that they were not aware of. And that actually helped to funnel the dream, which they had been encouraged by her to do. And blood, sweat, and tears got that first trailer open on 6th, and it was a blow up. They actually had set, they're like, we need to do $200 a day to be able to break even. Brandon said, hey, if I can be paid $500 a month, it'll cover all of my expenses. Dane kept his full-time job. They were working, nights, weekends to be able to do both and to get it going. Wildly successful. Took off. Like everybody was really just enjoying this product. They were soon able to get a second trailer going. And then before long, they're like, okay, now we have a business model that works and we can present and we can get some investment capital to be able to grow. And they opened the first brick and mortar in Oak Hill on West 290 in Austin in 2015. So we just had actually just this month had the 10-year anniversary of the first brick and mortar. It quickly had returned. They were able to pay investors back, went into a second location, a North Campus there across from the University of Texas. And then before long, they got East Side, which is over on the East 6th Street side, open too. So it had 3 brick and mortars, very successful. They were like, we would like to continue to grow. We want to be able to provide also opportunity for our teams to grow. They had a lot of really good team members, managers that had joined them along the way. And that's where they're like, okay, we need somebody bigger to help us. This is the only way we're going to be able to scale. And so that is when they went out to see, where the investment potential was, what private equity groups might be interested in a concept like Via 313. And through that, I think they, talked to at least 9 or 10 companies. I mean, it's a serious decision you have to make. And through that, they found Savory Restaurant Fund. And, the thing I think, with Savory that was unique to that, conversation is they felt that the brand was really going to be protected. And it is to this day. There's actually 2 boards, and one of the boards the brothers control the majority vote on, and it has a lot to do with our menu, with ingredients, with the design of the locations, music, even uniforms and attire, so that they could protect it. And Savory, came in 2020, so right in the middle of COVID, with a purchase, and then with being able to take majority of that and do an injection from the fund to be able to start growing. Then that's where, we saw the biggest of the growth quickly. And so that allowed the first expansion into Utah, into the Salt Lake market, and then obviously continued in the Austin market and then into San Antonio, where we have 3 locations now. And since then, we went into Houston. Obviously, we've got 5 locations over there. We have 2 in Colorado, working on our 2026, pipeline right now. But it was pretty rapid growth. I mean, when you think about coming from 3 brick and mortar restaurants, 2 trailers, in 2020 to in 2025, sitting at 25. And then we just completed a new food truck, which I'm sure we'll talk about as it goes live here and actually tomorrow. But that is kind of the broad history of Via 313. I could probably talk to you for 3 hours about the details of it, because it is a very cool story, but it is the brothers' dream being realized 100%.
Yeah, no, and I think it's, I love those kind of entrepreneurial stories where they kind of took something and made it from nothing. And quite frankly, I'm sure if you sat down with the brothers, they had a whole lot of ignorance in those early days, not having any idea what they were doing. They're just like, dude, I'm going to make some food that I want to eat, and hopefully other people like it. And so you talked a little bit about Detroit style pizza, and I guess at a macro level, there's not really anybody that's kind of gotten, save maybe Little Caesars, I guess, that's kind of Detroit style pizza, but not really. It feels like there's this burgeoning, we've always had kind of New York style pizza. You've always had the big guys out there, but there hasn't been a whole lot of, large growth in kind of that Detroit style pizza. I guess I'd love, Kipling, for you to talk a little bit about kind of why do you think that is? Because it is such a unique product, and I guess it delivers a different experience. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about your thoughts on why do you think it hits the palate in a different way than New York style pizza or a Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut type of thing?
Definitely. I think that's a great point you bring up, Jeremy. I mean, Jets is probably, the most that would be known, and it is more of a Little Caesars type of restaurant concept, and they deliver a product, that is quick, and it's all counter service pickup, and so it is different where we're a full service set down. And there are some great players out there now like Emmy Squared, Blue Pan, and then Buddies, which the brothers would frequent back in Detroit. But you're right, there hasn't been like a big growth of that, and it's interesting. I think it's catching on quickly. I'm starting to
Yeah.
see, a lot of conversation around people adding Detroit style pizzas, even other local independents, like where I'm based in San Antonio. There's at least 2 other concepts now that are local that are like, okay, we're adding Detroit style pizza to our lineup. But I think to me, the biggest difference is, Chicago pizza, all of them are good for different reasons. Chicago pizza is great. You can eat about one piece because it's so big and so thick and
Mhm.
so heavy. Whereas the Detroit style, having that really light and airy crust and then just not being so heavy with the sauce, it's still filling, but you don't feel like you have just eaten Thanksgiving dinner every time you sit down and have a couple of pieces. I mean, you can have a couple of pieces of pizza and it's a great meal and it's really well balanced. But from the type of sauce to the cooking technique to that crust and then having the cheddar wall, I think that is the thing that sets it the most apart, from the other types and styles of pizza. Everybody is doing New York. Everybody does some version of Chicago style or deep dish. And so I know that is going to continue to happen. We'll continue to have more and more competition. I think it's on the breakout. And I think the brothers are really ahead of, history a little bit with getting open in 2011 with the trailer. And I feel like that's why they were so successful in downtown Austin, because they're like, hey, wait, what is this? We've never had this kind of pizza, and haven't ever heard, what is Detroit style pizza? And people still ask that. So that is still how new it is on the scene. But our competition is going to get only more fierce, I know for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was last year, or I guess earlier in 2025, I was at RLC, and Sam Fox had just opened up his own, so from Fox Restaurants, I walked across the street from RLC out in Phoenix, and in that mall right across the way, and he's got a new wings and Detroit style pizza, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And I've had your guys' product, and I was like, ooh, there's lots of people that are coming after it, but I do think it creates a different canvas. But it also, to your point, Kip, is just, it's a different experience because it's sauce on the top. It's not just kind of the standard, even, previous product that you used to sell at BJ's. It's a hybrid, hybrid. It's not really Detroit style. It's not really Chicago style, even though kind of, they modeled themselves after, and they've even reintroduced the crust. But I just think it's so unique and different that it creates a compelling, I guess, flavor profile, and it's got a little bit of, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of oil. I love the crispy edges on the crust, which is also just, I think, kind of part of the charm of the pizza.
I completely agree. And I think you hit it right on the head. It's just different enough than every other type of pizza that we have our own kind of space. As you noted, I mean, even BJ's as this year has changed their pizza recipe up a little bit, and their dough and how they execute. And it's a really good product. And I mean, I spent 10 years, so I always have a ton of love for BJ's, but ours is different. So, and that's the thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. One of the other, I guess, areas that I'd love to talk a little bit about your guys' product is it travels really well. So pizza traditionally has traveled well, but a lot of times the larger crust, the first time I actually had it, it was being catered at an event in Austin. I was at a SAS conference in Austin, and I was like, what is this? I knew who you were, but I hadn't, and it was some vendor that had bought, 40 pizzas or whatever, and kind of had them laid out at this, at the SAS event down in Austin. I was like, dude, this is amazing. And now every time I'm anywhere where there is one, like I said earlier, I'm all over it. Talk to me a little bit about kind of your guys' mix, because it is casual dining. It is sit down, but in my opinion, it was just as good off-prem as it was on-prem, for me at least. And so I'd love to kind of have you talk a little bit about your guys' strategy as it relates to on-prem, off-prem. You're not really trying to go directly after a Domino's or a Pizza Hut, but off-prem is a critical piece of today's day and age and what people are looking for.
100%. And, reality is we still in restaurants average about 45 to 48%, and off premise, because pizza is that great thing that you can take to go. And it does, our pizza holds extremely well and it reheats extremely well in an air fryer. That's why we always, talk to everybody. We teach our guests that it's like, put this back in the air fryer at home. It'll crisp the cheese and the crust right back up. But what we are looking at, especially continuing what we did in 25 and then in 26, even with our catering space, is with off premise being such a big part of how we play, even being in a full service, full bar, sit down style restaurant, is continuously looking at a focus on flavors and additional appetizers, things that will enhance that also do well. Being off premise and being a takeout or ordered through a third party, because there's usually a lot more time that is taken where that product sits in a box. But we've continuously also looked at how we are packaging pizza. We actually have made a box change this past year, changes in liners. We're always looking at like what is going to be best for that experience, because the goal is to have the pizza as close as possible, when you get it in a box and it's delivered to your house or to an event, as it is inside of the restaurant. And the one thing that seems, to me, why the pizza or our pizza does so well is just because of that crust being a little bit lighter and more airy. It seems to be able to hold well. It doesn't steam in those boxes. But kind of going back to your original question, we are still like, we focus heavily on our app and encouraging, for the ordering experience when you order, directly from us, from our website or from our app. We have different third-party partners, but we're running promotions with most of the third-party partners as well too, because we know that there's a lot of people right now that are like, hey, I don't want to go sit down. I don't want to go spend time inside of the restaurant. The Detroit style pizza experience is a little bit longer because of the bake time. So they would rather say, hey, I would rather stop and pick this up on the way home from school or work. I would rather have this delivered. And so we continue to, look at other ways to make it more readily accessible. We've actually added some new third-party delivery partners. In Texas, we just partnered with Favor, which is really starting to take off. And it's great to be kind of part of the partnership of that HEB portfolio because of the offers that they attach there. But even like with DoorDash, we're testing in a Houston market some $12 meal promotions where it basically is a balanced item that can be ordered and it's specific to just through DoorDash. So we're actually not even running through our own delivery platforms and running through our app and our website. But we are very heavy focused on that because it is almost 50% of our business still, even with full service sit down restaurants. And that is going to continue to grow. And we know that. And we've also, in last kind of answer to your question, with Star Bar, the partnership we have with them on West 6th, we have a mini brick and mortar, and we know that that concept has a lot of potential. So even in a space where we would say, maybe we can't go put a 32 or 3,400 square foot restaurant in, what if we put this compressed mini brick and mortar model where it is literally all just takeout and third party, where you can pick up your pizza, you can order your third party takeout delivery from it, because the model is very strong and it's very profitable. I would say that we will definitely move forward with some other variations of concept change in 26 and 27 as well.
Yeah, no, and I think I think there's a lot of people that are envious of your mix of off-prem and on-prem, just because a lot of people in casual dining are still trying to figure out how to get above, maybe, that 15 to 20%, even with a pizza concept. And again, talking with other brands, Chili's has kind of set the standard for in dining, kind of with their 3 for me meals and things like that, and having to compete there, but they're still not killing it off-prem, and there's very few brands that are in casual dining that are killing it off-prem. And so the fact that you guys are able to mix that, I think, is incredible from that perspective. And so taking a step, I guess, let's talk a little bit about menu, because one of the other things that I think is always interesting is you guys have, it's not just kind of your standard pizza toppings. I think you guys have always got kind of some different new things coming out.
Today's episode is brought to you by Restaurant Technologies Incorporated. They are the leaders in automated cooking oil management. And if you're not familiar with them, they've been on the show a few times to share some of the unique and cool things that they've been doing in the oil management space. They have an end-to-end closed-loop automated system that helps deliver, monitor, filter, collect, and recycle your cooking oil. Sounds like a lot. It's because they do a ton to help clean up one of the dirtiest jobs and most dangerous jobs in your kitchen. You can check them out by visiting rti-inc.com or by calling 888-779-5314. They've already helped over 45,000 customers in the United States with their cooking oil, so clearly they're doing something right. Now back to the episode.
You guys are really creative about the ways that you guys deliver your product. I guess I'd love for you to talk about the thought process behind that and how and why LTOs, I guess, make a difference to move menu and kind of either introduce yourself to new guests and or to migrate people around the menu so that you can, you know, increase the number of incidents that people are engaging with the brand.
Definitely. We are, look, well, as you know, our menu just already, we have some, as you noted, very diverse toppings, and that's where a lot of the favorites come in there. With the change ups that we've done and some of the items that we've added to the menu over this past year, were literally because of LTOs. And we use the LTOs as kind of the proving ground. And we actually run a contest every year where we let team members, managers, anybody can submit new flavors and say, hey, here's a pizza that I like to make, or here's the things that I want. And we let them bring ingredients from the outside. And like the jalapeno papa absolutely kills it on our menu. And that was somebody that was one of our manager, actually a general manager, that submitted that recipe and was like, hey, this is a flavor that I really like. That introduced the sriracha honey. We already had hot honey. Sriracha honey actually, is doing extremely well inside the restaurants too. But, the things like the tikka masala, like having, that has so much flavor. It's just a powerhouse and it does great as an LTO. But as we're looking at flavors for 26, as we've spelled out most of our LTO plan already, we're watching what the trends is. We know that sweet and spicy and Asian flavors have a heavy influence. So we've got some things coming down the pipe that'll be launched in mid-year and then post mid-year into quarter 3 and 4. But as we look at the LTOs specifically, like right now, we got the triple threat. So that's an awesome new product, a new jalapeno pepperoni. And so we're like, this would be a great addition to just have on our menu as far as the pepperoni. So we're like, we need a way to launch it. So we launched it as an LTO. It's probably one of our strongest, maybe second to the elote, as far as one of the strongest pizzas that we did this year as an LTO. So it's going to go on the menu in January as a permanent, but that new jalapeno pepperoni doing really, really well. And so the elote pizza we'll bring back because it did extremely well. And, I got some weird looks when we talked about putting the elote pizza on. They're like, what, you're going to do a Mexican style street corn pizza? I'm like, absolutely. Like we tasted it. We tasted the submission with the cilantro lime vinaigrette crema on top of it. Everything was so good. But as we looked at 26, we know our menu is not huge and we've got to be able to be diverse as much as possible. And not everybody, if we go to the restaurant, maybe there's somebody that's like, hey, you know what? I just want a really good salad and I want the person that's with me to be able to have the pizza that they want. So we are going to be launching more LTO salads than we've ever done and hopefully find some new favorites that we put on. We have a new Austin Cobb salad that's going to be coming out in quarter 1. And I think the fresh flavors and everything that attached to that will be good. And it's getting away from pizza, but we have some really good new pizza flavors. And we've always done an LTO every month. And so what positionary change we're making this year is, the problem is like a guest comes in 30 days and they're like, oh, well, and maybe it is once a 30-day guest. And they're like, oh, I only got to try that pizza once. It's already gone. And, obviously it's very difficult on the team because you're constantly training and trying to bring in new ingredients. So we're like, hey, let's do more at once, but run all of our LTOs for a full quarter. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll have 2 pizza offerings. We'll have a salad. And then we're going to have some really, I guess, cool surprises. I'll foreshadow this a little bit. We're going to be testing a new spinach and artichoke dip that's going to be coming out that will be served with basically garlic bread as well as vegetables. But we also in quarter 2 have a cool new banana pudding with a twist to add to our desserts. So we have some things we've never played with, but we added Brussels sprouts last year in 2024, and they're like, Brussels sprouts at a Detroit style pizzeria. I'm like,
those things are
so
silly
good, so
Yes.
good. We sell so many Brussels sprouts, but that's where we're trying to get creative, not just in the pizza space, but also with other items that we're going to add to the menu and flavors. But you're going to see some really cool new influence in those toppings, and I think that's one of the other ways that we are able to stay ahead of everybody else in the Detroit pizza side, is just be more inventive and and creative. Brandon and Zane and I talk about this a lot. We're like, there's certain staples on that menu that we'll never mess with because they're just guest favorites. I mean, we know the Cadillac and the Boba Brazil and the Detroit. I mean, those will always be locked in. But sometimes just a little bit of a mix up, if an LTO works, is that we bring in a new pizza and then we remove one for a while, you know, to drive that interest back for our consumer. But I would say that the creativity on a weekly basis, I've got somebody from a restaurant emailing or telling me like, hey, have we ever thought about this? I'm like, you know what? Let's jump in the kitchen and let's see what it tastes like. And that's why I think our guests are going to be very excited to see what we launch over the 4 quarters for 2026. Some new flavors that we've never had, and I think we'll probably find some more that are permanent lineup items because I think they'll perform that well.
I love that. I mean, that's the one thing that I always find interesting is you guys are executing at a high level some very interesting flavor profiles. So it's like you don't get stuck, you know. And again, I remember years ago talking to David Overton, you know, the CEO and
Yeah.
founder of Cheesecake Factory. He's like, I want the no veto rule. I want people to not have to be able to. And yes, they execute at a crazy high level, and you know, everybody can go. Part of why my kids love BJ's is because some of them can get a salad, and some of them can get a steak, and some of them can get chicken tenders, and some of them can get pizza, and there's not. So the fact that you guys are able to execute at such a high level, I love that you're bringing that in to the brand. Before we get off the menu, what is your go-to? I love asking restaurateurs. My wife worked at In-N-Out growing up, and she's got her weird In-N-Out order. Doesn't order a burger this way. It doesn't order fries this way anywhere else in the world other than freaking In-N-Out because she was there every day eating the food. So she like squeezes lemon on her fries, and I'm like, babe, what is going on? She does lemon on her fries. She does the burnt mustard on her burger. So what is your go-to at Via 313 that you go get?
So ironically, I'm going to tell you first, the first pizza that I tasted at Via would not have been a pizza I would have ordered. But when Savory and Via were talking to me about coming into the brand, I hadn't had it yet. And so my wife and I went, and so we ordered just a bunch to be able to taste and to see. But my first bite was a Cadillac. And I was like, I'm not going to like this because I'm like, I don't know about the fig and all of the content from the salt of the prosciutto to the balsamic, you know, and that fig together. And the gorgonzola is magic. Like the pizza is great, and it's something I wouldn't have ordered. But my go-to all of the time that I really, really like for Detroit pizza is honestly just a classic Detroiter. I like having the double pepperoni. I love the cup and crisp pepperoni on the top and the smoked pepperoni underneath. But what I eat a lot of, because I have to eat a lot of pizza, is also Brandon Hunt's, one of his favorites, and that is the bar style, which are thin tavern style crust, an MC5. And then with the natural casing pepperoni on it. Super simple, but it is so good. And what I have found recently is that same sriracha honey that we use for the jalapeno papa. If you drizzle that on that pizza, it is magical. So I highly recommend trying that if you haven't.
I love it. Last question is really, I'd love to have you kind of talk a little bit about your guys' partnership with Savory, because the one thing that I do find when I talk to brands, so I've had a couple of brands that are part of their portfolio on the show, is that they are there to help you grow, but they're not there to help you tell them what to do. And I guess I'd love to have you kind of talk through that dance, because they own a portion of the brand, but they give you guys enough autonomy. And again, for restaurant owners, entrepreneurs that are out there that are at a place where they're like, dude, I want to grow, but I don't know how that partnership really helps accelerate your guys' growth, but doesn't hinder your growth from a perspective, because you're able to talk to CEOs across the brand, you're able to talk to the founders. And I again, I'm inferring some things just kind of knowing from other people, but I'd love to have you talk through a little bit of that. Why is it such a differentiator having a partner like that rather than it just being a money group that's like, here's money, go grow as fast as possible, and who cares what happens? Because there's some other brands in Austin that had that happen, and ultimately it hurt them. And I love that you guys are kind of taking it slow and steady, but with somebody that wants you guys to succeed, not just for the sake of success, but to see sustainable growth long term.
Absolutely. And, you know, you are correct. And here's the aspect, because having a brands under one umbrella, you've got a wealth of knowledge between, as you said, founders. I have other partnerships with the other executive leaders of the other brands as well. But what really makes Savory different to me in the private equity space is it isn't just banking. It isn't just, hey, here's a check, you figure out how to scale and grow. And granted, I came in after, you know, the transaction and all the growth had already started. But what I can tell you is, you know, especially like with Shauna Smith, She is an operator. They
Mm-hmm.
started Kneaders back in the day and built a concept and sold it and have been in the restaurant industry. So having, senior executive leaders and a P fund be able to have the real world experience and know, okay, that is a pain point, or this is what, hurts, or this is what is not doable in scaling, or this is something that is not going to work operationally inside of a restaurant, is super helpful. But on the other side is, I think that there's also the space that will let you, not fail, but, make those mistakes and figure it out. Like, okay, this wasn't the best move. But I think also the guidance of, having a really strong support with real estate and legal. And, we're a big brand now as far as like where we're at leadership wise. But that's the other piece is it's like, innings 1 through 9. So when they first acquire a brand and like it's kind of a swarm. They have to jump in and help and start getting everything figured out and identifying systems and bringing them online. At 25 now, and until we are to a point, of a transaction, we really have built out our leadership team. I have a chief financial officer, a full accounting and finance team, marketing, area leader support training. So they are able to just be an accentuator to those things. They help us with those pieces without having to basically micromanage the brand, but are there essentially as a safety net to not fail. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. And that's where I know Brandon and Zane would tell you the thing that would scare them with some of maybe the other PE groups that they talked to was, it was all about the numbers. And I know when Andrew and Shauna Smith sat down with Brandon and Zane, it was, we don't want to mess this up. This feel of what this restaurant feels like, the experience, we want to protect that and scale in a way that's responsible to be able to grow the brand and to be able to keep, amazing food, the same service and feel as restaurant number one. And I think that has been accomplished. And I don't know that we could have done that obviously, with another group that was leading. And so I think, kind of back to the root of the initial question is it's freedom within framework. So we get to run and make some decisions and fail, hopefully failing forward, but have some guardrails in place and some secondary support. So you have essentially that safety net. So that is what to me, the best part of the Savory Fund and all of the team that's behind that and helping. And what I do appreciate, and it's the last thing I'll say is, when a new brand is coming on. So we had, they brought on Hawkers and then Bonru, this year. Andrew or Shauna or one of the team will be like, hey, they'll reach out to other brand leaders and be like, hey, would you have a conversation with these founders? Be real. Talk to them about what it's like working with Savory Fund, what your support level is, everything. To me, that provides an open book. And I think that probably makes, especially a new brand under an acquisition feel much more comfortable. Probably different than, unfortunately, a lot of those other transactions and bringing other new grow-up brands. But as you noted, it's sad to see there have been some opportunities, especially in Austin locations that did not have that same experience.
Well, and I say it partially because I want listeners that are out there that might be a restaurant owner that's got 5 stores and is looking to grow to not make the same mistake that some of these other people have, because I do really think that the Savory Fund, and there's a few others, I'm not, they're not the only ones, but they have a different modicum. They have a different way that they go about it. And I wanted to have you talk about it from the receiving end, because sometimes, and again, you're not going to talk bad about your bosses, but at the same time, understanding that alignment of what you're doing and being able to fail a little bit to grow is a huge piece of it. Kip, talk to me. How do people stay connected? How do people learn? How do people engage with the brand? Talk to our listeners out there. Are you guys looking to grow? Or are you looking to franchise? I guess talk to me about what engagement might look like other than order more of our food, let us know how it is, all of those kind of things, which I'm good with that as well.
For sure. So right now, obviously we're in a continued growth pattern, looking at 3 to 4 more units for 2026. We will continue to grow even faster than that in 27. Essentially over the next 3 years, really getting close to that 40 mark. And so as far as where we're at, loyalty is what we're super, super focused on right now, is getting more people involved in the app and our loyalty rewards program. That has been the biggest focus of the back half of 2025, and to a point where we're doubling and tripling what we were getting as far as loyalty enrollments as we were at the beginning of the year. And that is the best way for our guests to engage with us, because of earning your points, getting the rewards. You get firsthand all of the marketing off, most of which are exclusive to our loyalty rewards members. And so you can go on to via313.com and be able to sign up. You can go download the app and go in and sign up for your rewards right there. But we are going to continue to focus heavily on that. especially in 2026. Our focus on drip campaigns for visits 1 through 4 has proven to be very successful. And we are continuously working with the loyalty rewards provider. We actually are going to make a change of that in 2026 with one where we want to get a little bit more intimate in what we can offer. We want to be able to target so Jeremy can say, hey, you know what, on my birthday, the Detroiter with jalapenos and sriracha honey is my favorite item. And we want to get closer to where we can say, hey, here's that pizza on us, and we want you to come celebrate your birthday. And what we're going to focus, heavily as we continue to look at the marketing engagement with our guests is understanding what it is that they want. We pay very close attention to our guests' feedback. I know you've had Zach Oates, I believe, on your podcast as well too, from Ovation. We are a partner with Ovation. We launched them in 2024 at the front end of the year, and our guest sentiment is super strong. We're averaging a 4.7 as a brand. But
Wow.
what I often tell everybody is we pay more attention. As just before I started this call with you, I was watching some feedback that came through from one of the Austin restaurants and watching the manager engage because the guests didn't have a great experience. Fortunately, modifiers were wrong on the pizza. It wasn't super hot by the time they picked it up. Within 1 minute, that manager had responded and apologized for what the error was, offered to be able to remake the item, said we could get it back out to them if they had ability to come and pick it up. But we watch heavily all of the guest insights of like, hey, what do you like? What do you don't like? Is it slow to pick up when you're coming to get your order? What happens with third party? And the way that we can be able to impact how we change operations right down to scheduling and when we staff from the bookends of the shift to knowing when we need people on, we can surgically insert labor and focus on guest experience just based off of feedback and paying close attention to that. We want to continue to get into these new markets, continue to expand in existing markets. That is all guest based and getting people out there to be able to tell other people. I mean, you're not even in a market where you can eat us regularly, but we've obviously created, a fan with you. And that's what we want to do. I mean, I talk to a lot of guests as I travel that are like, oh, well, I didn't know there's a VIA 313. I'll fly into Denver. And they're like, I didn't know we have one here. And I'm like, yeah, there's two. But getting that word out, because we are still small enough that it is harder. The fact we're not all over TV. I mean, we'll eventually probably go into doing some CTV this year. But it is really heavily through our loyalty rewards platform and through socials between TikTok, Insta, and Facebook. And I know we mentioned it earlier, and I got to get my plug in there. We built a new food truck. And so that's the first since the trailers to where we actually have a self-contained truck that doesn't have to be pulled. And we launch it tomorrow at St. Elmo Brewing in Springdale in Austin for their New Year's Eve party. And I could not be more excited because that truck will have residents there. And, that's huge for us because craft beer and pizza go hand in hand, and St. Elmo's has a huge following. And so we're very excited to see, what that does. But my bigger intent on building that food truck is markets like Dallas, when we get ready to go, is be able to send a food truck up and be able to go into the areas we're interested in, set up and let people taste our product, get an idea of what the feel is, how people receive it, because it's going to help us to understand, would we do well in those areas. And the other thing I would say too is, as we get a new restaurant open, we would like to be able to set those food trucks up so guests can come start to eat and order pizza before the brick and mortar is actually open. We are humble. We're looking for every new guest we can get. We will say it over and over again. The brothers will constantly say it is, we just want to get our pizza in somebody's mouth, because once you taste it, I think it speaks for itself. It sold me. It's the reason I'm in this seat today.
Yeah, well, and the thing that I again love that you guys are doing is this sustainable growth. It's not growth for growth's sake. It's growth to ensure that guests are satisfied with the product, and you guys are very methodical. Obviously, with the operational mindset that you bring from so many years, make sure that the guests are taken care of, because when the guest is taken care of, the staff is taken care of, the rest takes care of itself, right?
100%. And sometimes that question comes up. I mean, we opened 6 last year. We only opened 2 this year. And it is just being about being responsible, like not, just open restaurants, as you said, to open restaurants for the sake of opening them. It needs to make sense. It needs to be profitable, but we also have to execute. We want to make sure we don't outrun our talent pipeline. We are very careful to try to continue to promote from within. We get people that know the product and culture. That's the best way to tell the story, and to get everything I told you about Brandon and Zane in 2011 all the way to every guest is to continue to operate that way for sure.
Yeah, no, and again, I really appreciate you sharing the story. Please tell the founders that one, I selfishly love the product, and it's great to watch you guys grow, and it's been fun to watch your career trajectory and kind of stay connected, over the last few years to watch you guys continue to grow. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. To our listeners, guys, like I say each and every time, you guys got lots of choices, so thanks for hanging out. If you are in a region and you have not checked out their food, I would encourage you strongly to go check it out. Try a couple different things because, dude, they execute at such a high level. Try it off-prem, try it on-prem. It's amazing product. So, Kip, thank you so much for your time. And to our listeners, make it a great day.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I appreciate you.